Ladies and gentlemen, today it is Tuesday, the 16th of June 2026, the first day of the month of Tammuz. The year is 5786 according to the Jewish calendar. Unlike previous topics I have covered in the previous videos, which deal mainly with the Arab world, today we will touch one of the most troubled countries in East Africa, and that is Sudan. Why is it so troubled and why it had 3 civil wars? Introduction, and we can begin. Hello everyone. Before we will talk about Sudan, we need to understand that it's not really a country in the way that many people think. When we talked about the Middle East and mentioned Islam, we saw that Islam had existed in countries like Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and other places since the 7th century, from the days of Muhammad. Sudan in that context is very different because it was a pagan until about 2,000 years ago, when the region adopted Christianity, and by the end of the 16th century, Islam took over Sudan. That's an important point I wanted to open with. Another point is that politically, Sudan, since its independence from Egypt and Britain in 1956, I think, had been a very unstable country. Why? Because the main reason is tribalism. We will get to that shortly, but let's say the rapid support forces, for example, are led by Rezigiat tribe, a tribe that originated from the region of Darfur, while Sudan's official army is composed mainly of Arab Sudanese tribes from the northern parts of the country. How did Sudan suddenly move towards radical political Islamic agenda that actually dictated everyday lives? To understand that, we need to sort things out. The person who ruled Sudan from the 1990s was a dictator named Omar al-Bashir, who came to power, who came from the Sudanese army. He was relatively a secular man who knew the society well, but one of the people closest to him and considered his closest advisor was a man named Hassan al-Turabi, a radical Muslim. How did Sudan change? One of the steps that Omar al-Bashir took in that direction, obviously on Hassan al-Turabi's advice, was allowing Osama bin Laden to operate his organization, Al-Qaeda, from within Sudan. They also maintained close relations between Sudan and Hamas and imposed Sharia law over the country. I didn't find any footage, but the Israeli media reported that alcohol being poured into the sewers in the streets, cinemas are being shut down for showing inappropriate content, and the burning of playing cards because it is considered as gambling, maisar in Arabic. Another development in Sudan was the country's ambition to become one of the centers of Sunni Islam in Africa, attracting the most extreme elements, among them Palestinians, Algerians, and Egyptian terrorist organizations who received training and shelter, to the point of which the United States declared Sudan a state sponsor of terrorism. When al-Bashir imposed the Sharia law, he didn't impose it only on the Muslims of Sudan. He tried to impose it on everyone. And that's the problem, because Sudan was never a religiously unified country. In the south, which is mainly Christian, refused. So what happens when you refuse to Islamize? You go to a civil war. The south, which was never Arab and never fully Muslim, simply refused to accept the Sharia law that imposed from Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. That war, which lasted for almost 20 years, was one of the longest and deadliest wars in African history, with over 2 million dead. In 2011, the South simply became South Sudan, separating from the rest of the country. But while al-Bashir was busy with the south, something else exploded. In the region of Darfur, in the west of the country, tribes began to revolt against the central government. Al-Bashir's response was to recruit local tribal militias and send them to crush the rebellion with absolute brutality, what would be known later as the Genocide in Darfur. In 2019, protests broke out against al-Bashir's rule, and the public demanded democratic elections. But the ones who actually seized the opportunity were the army, and two of Sudan's top generals staged a coup and took power. One of them was a general named Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, and the other is Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo Musa. Later, a conflict erupted between them. Musa actually wanted to maintain the autonomy of his forces, while Burhan wanted all fighting forces across Sudan to join the army. Musa took his forces and actually broke from the government, and today's forces, which we know as the Rapid Support Forces, are seeking control of all over Sudan, backed by the Russians and the UAE, while Burhan and the main Sudanese army receive support from Turkey, Egypt, and seemingly Saudi Arabia. And now we are in the third Sudanese civil war. And during this war, horrific atrocities are committed by both sides. Massacres against Christians, Arab tribes, or Darfuris, depending on who controls where. But the issue is that no Western media outlet covers the Christian problem in Sudan. Why? Because in African civil wars, Christians are usually the most vulnerable population, with virtually no one protecting them. Certainly not outside forces like the Americans, the Koreans, or even the Europeans, who are too busy going after Israel, while those who have something to say about every Israeli move stay quiet when Christians are being massacred in Sudan. And the question is, why? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the culture of the Middle East. Terrible and horrific civil wars between tribes, massacres against those who aren't Muslims, and also those who are democratic regimes collapse within days, and ego games that cause the millions of deaths. Thank you very much.